language than the forest would return. If we just listen closely, we may just find that we have no respect in this cosmos as far as we can see. So look within, find your source, the source beyond all names, and there you'll find all creatures and you are one and the same. Look within, ask yourself, just what part do you play? And if the earth could speak your tongue, what would she say?
You know, I think the reason why these films are resonating with people, Mark, is because so many people are looking for that freedom, you know, and they're not finding it in that world, in that technology and all their little new toys, and you know, the toy breaks and they got to get another one, and it's just really stressful. Most people these days have two jobs. Most families, the guy and the gal both work, and then they let somebody else raise their children. But you know, I didn't realize there were so many people of all walks of life that want to support someone like myself, you know, that lives really simple. You know, like once I was up north on the North Queensland, and I built a wagon. I went to an op shop and got 2 old bicycles really cheap, and got myself a piece of sheet metal, and I bolted these 2 bicycles together about that far apart, and made this platform up on top of the bicycles, and I took the handlebars and put them around the other way and put extensions on them. Then I made myself a harness, and then I wove a big basket up on top of the bicycles that I could sleep in. I had little windows and little dolls hanging off of it, and all my natural medicines just hanging all over it, like feathers and shells, and then I made a harness for it, and I pulled it out of Coranda. I built it in Coranda, and then I pulled it out through the tablelands. For me, it's like the last 12 years I've been really trying to get out of these cars. You know, it's just walk everywhere and get a really intimate relationship with the earth. And so I've been trying all different ways. I've had everything from a bullock that would follow me everywhere, little horses, like I just spent 2 years up in North Queensland with a little Shetland crossed with a miniature, and she'd carry about 50 kilos for me out through the bush. But when I was pulling that cart, I was on the road because I couldn't really get off into the bush, so I was pulling it on the road, and then when I'd get to these special places, I'd pull it off a little ways and then go bush with it. But in the wagon I had plenty of storage, so I could carry things like pumpkins. When I'd be going along, a lot of people would give me things like pumpkins, hands of bananas. One time a person gave me about 10 coconuts, and I could put it underneath my basket, underneath my cart there in the storage area, and take it with me. So anyway, I was pulling this cart along the highway between Mariba and Mount Malloy, and I must have had 20 cars in 25 kilometers pull up and want to know what I'm doing. And when they'd talk to me and everything, and I'd tell them I'm trying to get out of these cars, I'm trying to find an alternative, you know, where I can just walk and still carry a few things with me. And they'd end up giving me a $50, $100 even one guy gave me, $20. By the time I got to Mariba, 25 kilometers, I had $300, and I started out with nothing. And it was all walks of life, you know. Like, this one guy was a policeman, and he pulled up and he told me he was a bicycle expert. So I went through my whole bicycle with little wrenches and tightening everything up, and you know, and then he invited me over because he was managing a pub on his off duty, and he invited me over for dinner on his shout, and gave me a place to sleep, and then off I went again in the morning. Yeah, it's just, I think everyone, when they see someone trying to live in harmony with the earth and the spirit of love, they want to support it. You know, I'll bet you anything. If George Bush would have seen me pulling that wagon along the highway, he would have pulled over and give it support. You know, it goes right across the board. It's in our DNA. Hey, wow, look at this, Mark. Watercress. Oh man, that's so good in a salad. I'll just get a bit here. It's under the water. Oh, that's so nice. But hey, you know, you've got to be careful when you harvest this plant, because little snails can live on the root system, and those snails can have parasites that can live in you. So when you harvest this plant, make sure you wash the roots off really well and inspect it for little tiny snails. Okay, but it's really beautiful, and it's in all the creeks. Check this out, Mark. Madura vines covering up the wild amaranth there. So there's one other vine in there. This one, which isn't a bush tucker, but this one here, that's Madeira vine. And a lot of people don't like that vine because it covers and mats trees and chokes them out, like it's killing this amaranth right here. But it's a beautiful bush tucker. You can actually eat it raw. Just eat the leaf like that. But it's really nice steamed too as well, like a big pot of spinach. And it's everywhere, it's all over the place. And you can also use the vine for weaving. So it's a great weaver. So that's another use for that vine. And here we go. See how it's up in the trees? Going up the trees there, and it's choking that tree out. So when you harvest it for fibers and food, you're actually helping other trees grow. You can see all those tubers hanging off of the dead vine there. Every time one of those falls to the ground, it grows another vine. And so you can just take as much as you want of this, and it's not going to hurt anything. In fact, it's going to help the native plants and other things growing around it. And look at this beautiful wild amaranth here. All these leaves are edible. The whole plant's edible. You could gather these seeds and sprout them. See all those little tiny seeds? They're kind of like alfalfa sprouts. You can put them in a container, soak them up for overnight, and then drain the water off and sprout them just like any sprout. And these leaves are beautiful, and there's so many here. And you'll find this plant, there's quite a few wild amaranth species in Australia, and you'll find it almost everywhere you go in the bush. You'll find one of these species. That's the leaf. There's the back of it, so you can see the veins. And that's how it flowers. You get this little It's a pretty easily identifiable plant. There's a whole salad just in this small area right here. Hey Mark, look, we got the farmer's friend here, which we showed you in the first documentary. We got the wild amaranth and the Madeira vine. And just over here we got the blue flower, which I haven't actually, I don't even know the name of this plant, but I've put it to the edibility test. And it's, I reckon it's like taking vitamins. You just take the real small amount of that plant, and it grows everywhere I've been, from here to Cooktown. And I just eat a couple of those little flowers like that. It's pretty nice. I've acquired a taste for that plant. At first I didn't really like it. But yeah, and we'll tell you all about the edibility test here pretty quick. Here's some nice leaves, Mark, of the Madeira vine. Let's harvest some for some lunch today, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about hurting this vine. Like if this was a native vine, you'd be a lot more careful with it, because most native vines aren't actually strangling everything out of control like a weed. Now this vine is. There's no possible way that you could get rid of it without chemicals, I reckon, or lots and lots of effort. Because every time you drop one of those seeds, which I'll show you, let's grab one. That's the aerial root system of this plant. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it around. And every time the vine dies and dries out, it drops those things and grows a whole other plant. And there's hundreds, thousands, millions of them everywhere, so really impossible to kill the plant. But it's a great food source. I mean, you can gather up heaps of it in a really short time. So a really good food source with very little effort. Boom. Okay, there's a tuber, and I've just read that you can eat this, but you don't want to boil it because they reckon it tastes like snot and has the same consistency of really mucus type stuff. And it's a real turnoff. But they reckon if you roast it, it's delicious. So you might have that a go if you're in a survival situation out there.
Okay, the situation is that I'm the guinea pig. Koa's actually cooked a lovely dish for me, which is roasted roots from the Madura vine and the leaves. I don't know if you can see that, but we've got the leaf and we've got macadamia nut type of sauce, is that right?
Yes.
So I'm going to give it a go. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's very nutty. Little tubers are nice.
Do you need to peel them or?
No.
Okay, well if you're still alive in the morning, we'll go ahead and put this in the documentary. Yeah, this plant has a lot of medicinal value too, Mark. Mm-hmm. It's an anti-inflammatory, mm-hmm. and it's also excellent for the liver.
Really?
Yeah, they've done lots of studies on it because ancient cultures have used it for thousands upon thousands of years. So you know, there you go.
I'm eating some health.
Yeah, when you're in the bush and you want to know if a plant is edible or not because you haven't seen it in the bush tucker books or whatever, you know. This is a test that you can put it to, and it'll tell you whether it's actually edible or not. You only test one part of the plant at a time. In other words, either the flower, the seed, the root, or the leaf, the bark, etc. So just one part of the plant at a time. Break the plant into its basic components: leaves, stems, roots, buds, and flowers. Smell the potential food part for strong or acid odors, keeping in mind smell alone does not indicate the plant is edible. Do not eat for 8 hours before starting this test. During the 8 hours you are abstaining from eating, test for contact poisoning by placing a piece of the plant part on the inside of your elbow or wrist. 15 minutes is enough time for a reaction to happen, so even just crush it and then rub it into your wrist. During testing, take nothing by mouth except for pure water and plant part being tested. Select a small portion of a single component of the plant and prepare it the way you plan to eat it. Before putting the plant part in your mouth, touch a small bit to the outer surface of the lips, testing for itch or burning sensation. If no reaction after 3 minutes, place the plant part on your tongue, holding there for 15 minutes. If no reaction, thoroughly chew a tiny bit of the plant part, hold in the mouth for 15 minutes, do not swallow. If no burning, itching, numbing, stinging, or other irritation occurs during the 15 minutes, swallow it. Wait 8 hours. If any ill effects occur during this time, drink a lot of water and induce vomiting. If no ill effects occur, eat half a cup of the plant part, prepared the same way. Wait 8 hours. If no ill effect occurs, then the plant part, as prepared, is edible. Some plants have both edible parts and non-edible parts. Don't assume that a part of the plant that proved edible means that all of the plant is edible. Okay? There you go. That's a universal edibility test. Hey, wow, look at this bush tucker, Mark. Clover. Look at this. You can eat all the clovers. There's a red clover and a white clover. I'm pretty sure those are the two. main ones. And clover grows everywhere I go in the bush. It's a beautiful one. And you can eat the stem, the flower, the roots if you need to. And look, see how it's all spread through here? You could get a really good feed off those leaves. That's excellent. This is a nose flute. A lot of tribes had flutes that when you were growing up in their tribe, like the nose flute is from the Polynesian culture, and when you were growing up in their tribes, you needed to learn how to make the flute and play the flute, because when you got interested in girls, you'd sneak up on where she's picking her berries or fishing or whatever she's doing, and you're hiding and you play her a tune, a melody, a love melody. And because you grew up together, she'd know who was playing the flute even though she couldn't see you. And if she wanted to be with you, she'd play her flute back. And so it sounds like this. And needless to say, they didn't let other people play their flute. A nose flute is a personal instrument. You don't let other people play it. Hey, look, check that out, Mark. There's a bush lemon. I find those all through the bush in Australia, especially the limes, the finger limes, black finger limes, and I think there's a couple of other different colors like green and red even. But yeah, beautiful to flavor foods and get a bit of vitamin C hit from. Yeah, they're a bit high and not quite ripe, but hey, look at this, Mark. There's one ripe one on the ground. Perfect, eh? Awesome. Let's grab lunch. Okay, well, you remember in the first documentary, we went out to harvest the bulrush and didn't have a digging stick with me, so we weren't able to get it. And, you know, mainly I've only harvested it around like ponds and dams, and it's quite easy to just pull it out with your hands. So that's why I didn't have a digging stick. But when it's growing in a swamp situation, well, obviously you need a digging stick. So we're making one here. This is off of a fruit tree. I think it's a custard apple that was pruned the other day. So I just got it, and it was a perfect shape because it's got a bit of a curve, like a shovel blade, and it had a knot here where I can carve it out, and then I can get my hand down there and it won't slip, or I can actually put my foot on that and push it into the ground like a shovel. It's got a nice handle on it. It's about 1 meter long, and you can see how big around it is in relationship to my hand. So we'll just finish it up here, and then we're going to go harvest some bulrush properly and show you how to make bread. Oh, great. Look at this, Mark. We found some bulrush here. Looks like we should be able to get that pretty easy. Just make sure there's no snakes. You know, the red-bellied black, this is the perfect territory for the red-bellied black. Their main food is frog eggs. So they like to hang around these ponds. Slowly go in here because I don't want to sink up to my neck.